What's good, guys? This is David from DW Fitness, and in today's video we're in a different setting. I've been studying a lot recently, and for the next few weeks I may not be posting videos just because I have a huge test coming up at the end of the month and there's been a lot of things going on. But I wanted to still release a video for you guys this week and basically cover a simple concept that I hope will benefit some of you guys who work at desk jobs, who sit a lot, because I have been sitting a lot recently. I want to teach you guys something that really helped someone who I knew and kind of helped her with her back pain, because she had immense back pain. And this is a great thing that they do in physical therapy as well. When I worked in physical therapy before and volunteered, this was something that would be a huge simple tip to help just really mediate back pain issues, because a lot of back pain issues are caused from excessively tight hip flexors, which lead to something called anterior pelvic tilt. So anterior pelvic tilt is when basically your pelvis gets pulled forward and you end up in this arched position where your butt is basically up and you have an arch in your lower back here, okay? So really you should be in a nice neutral position when you stand, and instead when your hip flexors are tight, it causes this excessive tilt, okay? And when you have that excessive tilt, it will put more pressure onto the lower back, and this in turn can cause issues in the long run. And so the hip flexors are really just shortened, and they're shortened when we sit at home. So basically, I wanted to show you guys a tip that you can do when you're sitting. If you have back pain when you sit, one simple tip that can help to mediate this issue is simply raising your chair a little bit higher. See, if I sit down and I lower my chair all the way down here, you'll see right here that my hips are basically excessively flexed. Okay, I'm all the way here and my hips are basically really flexed. And hip flexion is when you are bringing your leg up like this. And this back here is extension, when you're kicking back something. When you see people do those glute exercises where they're kicking back, that is hip extension. So when you're in excessive hip flexion and you are staying in that position for a prolonged period of time, basically this is going to cause your hip flexors to get tight. And the main hip flexor is the psoas major. You also have the iliacus. The psoas major originates on the lumbar vertebrae, so L1 through L5, which is your lower spinous processes, and it attaches or inserts onto the femur. So if it gets really tight, it's going to pull and shift your pelvis that way and cause something called anterior pelvic tilt if it's not just balanced out. So one simple tip for you guys if you deal with back pain, simply to raise your chair height a little bit higher to help accommodate and prevent this excess tightness. Now we're going to go off to the gym now as well. I'm going to show you guys a few great stretches to help counteract this. So I hope this helps you guys. See you all in the gym. So in my lower body just routines where I'm working towards releasing my lower body, one muscle that I target a lot is the TFL. It's a hip flexor and an abductor, and it attaches to the IT band, and if it's really tight, this can cause knee problems, and so I like to release the TFL. It's basically right near the hip and above the IT band. You kind of have to move around and to find it, but once you do, you'll feel it. In most people, it's pretty painful. This right here is just a quad release. I like to hold those releases for about 30 seconds. And I recommend that you hold the release and just breathe. Focus on relaxing. Now, this is a hip flexor stretch. This is a static hip flexor stretch. And you're going to see that every time I do this stretch, I focus on setting my pelvis in a posterior position, making sure that it's not in that anterior pelvic tilt position that I showed you guys earlier, making sure that it's neutral. If that stretch feels good to you, this is also a great stretch to further intensify that stretch. Basically, you put a band and you basically attach it towards a pole and you place it right below your pelvis. Not only will this help to set your pelvis, but it will also intensify the stretch. But you want to make sure that you do this in a proper manner. Make sure you don't over lean into the stretch. Don't anteriorly translate or move forward too much. Just focus on getting a good stretch in that hip flexor and releasing it. Now, this is more of a dynamic version of the hip flexor stretch. Basically, you're standing and you're rotating in a transverse way to basically kind of engage the hip flexors in the whole body prior to a workout. This is what I do because it's dynamic. I typically don't do the static
before I go into heavy compounds like squats. This right here is just a simple release that you can do as well. It can take some time to find the hip flexor and really pinpoint a trigger point, but once you do, you'll also feel it. All I'm using is my water bottle here and a tennis ball. Basically what I'm doing is I'm placing my hip flexor into flexion and then extending slowly while internally rotating to really focus on actively releasing the muscle. And this is something I did post-workout and just going nice and slow. And I recommend you guys do that for this, just really nice and slow if you do try this release to focus on engaging and releasing that hip flexor. So these are just a few moves that I wanted to share with you guys. I recommend performing the stretches for around 30 to 60 seconds each time, especially the static ones. And I just hope this video helps you guys on your fitness journey to a healthier version of yourself. All right, peace guys.